Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm Andy RC and today I'm going to be checking out the RunCam TX200. This is RunCam's answer to the full speed TX200, which of course is a VTX that piggybacks onto a RunCam Micro Swift and it turns it into an all-in-one. So I previously reviewed the TX200 from Full Speed and I really liked it, but they are two different companies. So I don't think this is going to be a case of which is the best here. I think it's going to be more of a case which is more suitable for your build. For example, the voltage input is different. So on the RunCam TX200, the voltage input is 3.5 volt to 5.5 volt, which is actually quite a narrow voltage input. However, it does have a built-in regulator to power up your camera off 5 volts. Whereas the TX200, it has a wider voltage input up to a 4S. However, it doesn't have a built-in regulator for the camera, it just passes the VBAT through to the camera, which I actually found very useful. I thought I was going to get a load of noise, but actually the fact that it didn't have a regulator through to the camera meant that it didn't get any noise whatsoever, whereas I use the TX25 from RunCam, so that is the version before this one, so just 25 milliwatts, and that one has the same voltage input and it also has a built-in regulator, and because it was all close together I got a tiny bit of noise. So like I say, it all depends on the specifications of your flight controller. So what I had to do with this particular build is I had to run the power to the camera off the built-in regulator because the back on this flight controller didn't support enough amps to power the camera off the 5 volt and also the VTX off the 5 volt, so I had to do a lot of messing around with the soldering, whereas with this one here I could just plug it in direct to the battery and everything ran fine. So what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to upgrade my TX25 on the Flex RC Ascent. So yeah, this is the Ascent. I did a build on the channel. I've upgraded the receiver to a XM Plus because the USky receiver, it wasn't quite good enough. It was running off the 3 volt that you have to tap into on here, and yeah, that wasn't a great solution and it was difficult to rebind, etc. So I'm switching that out. And I'm also going to upgrade this as well because this one, just like the Full Speed, is a switcher. So it switches between 25 milliwatt and 200 milliwatt. It is a 48 channel and it weighs 3.4 grams, very similar to this. And it also has a UFL connector as well, which the 25 milliwatt version didn't have. It just on a solder joint there, and actually that kept breaking off. So we've got some options with this one. I can switch it out for one of these Cloverleaf antennas here if I want, so I like the extra options that we have there. Actually looks like a slightly smaller profile, the RunCam version as well. Looks like we've got some LEDs on there to go through the different channels and the power, etc., and the bands. And I think this one had the button on the side, so if you've got the camera in your model it might be tricky to get to it. Again, it all depends on your frame, you know. It might be difficult to get to the back. In fact, it is going to be difficult to get to the back of this model, so to have it on the side in this case actually might be better. So like I say, I don't think it's going to be a case of which is the best, more of which is the most suitable for your build. So I'm going to upgrade this to there. We get the same sort of mounts that you got on the 25 milliwatt version, so these little standoffs here and some screws. You're also given a extension cable there. Actually it looks like JST there, so 1.25 pitch 3-pin JST to 1mm pitch. It's an interesting choice, isn't it? And then, yeah, we have got this little connector here to connect up. Probably gonna have to cut that off there. So yeah, let's get this all sorted out. Okay, so I've chopped all the gubbins off here and just removed the 2 screws. You can see that it's the same standoffs as the RunCam 25. In fact, the entire board looks very similar. Look at that, hardly any difference between the two there. Button on the back, same as before. Set would just have the UFL connector there. So I'm going to use the same screw so I don't have to mess about, and that should just screw on there like so. And I'm going to have to desolder some of this so that it can solder up with my copter. I've had to take all of that apart, so I'm going to go and do that next. Just look at all of those wires. So I've cut the connector off here for the power. That is going into the 5 volt of the flight controller. And then the negative to the VTX I've actually got going on the video out ground. And then I've desoldered these here, and we've got the video out cable going there. I'm also running a second ground to there as well, and then I've got the 5 volt out here going to the little pin that plugs into the camera. I've also got another negative running from the video in there, and then the actual video in cable. So lots of cables when you put an on-screen display in the mix, but yeah, there you go, that's how I have got this one wired. Okay, so another thing that I found out with this VTX is it's not actually a switcher, it's a 48 channel VTX, which is a lot of channels. However, half of the channels are on 200 milliwatt and the other half are on 25, so yeah, a bit of a strange one at that, whereas this one is an actual switcher. So again, you need to decide which one is best for you. And just like the 25 milliwatt cam, you see the red flashing light there, that is the band, and you have got red lights for all of the other bands, and then the channel is the blue light there, and channel 8 is on constant, and then channel 1 is no light, and then in the middle it's just going to flash once, so you kind of have to count through your channels each time. And when you get to a solid blue light, that is channel 8, and it just so happens that on band 1 channel 8 is 200 milliwatt, so I'm going to leave it at that. So I actually found that the channels didn't quite match up compared to the chart. I was using the Real ACC Pro Plus diversity module, and I landed it on the channel that the frequency chart said it was, and it wasn't quite correct. So I'm not actually sure if this particular channel that I'm on is the one that's 200 milliwatt. All I will say is that according to the chart, so I think band A, they were calling it, on channel 8, they were saying was 200 milliwatt. That's what I'm on here. However, I think in the actual diversity module it was a completely different frequency than it said it was. But despite that, I thought it was a great reception. So I'm also using the Menace RC Bandicoot antenna here as well. It's a real important piece of the puzzle when using a linear antenna. It really makes the difference there when using diversity. But I have to say, you know, I was expecting a little bit of noise to filter through, and there seems to be less noise than I had with the TX200 version. And again, I'm thinking now though, I might have been on the wrong channel there as well. But the great thing about the diversity module is I can go through and scan the strongest channel, and this was it, and I thought the reception was pretty good. It's going to be a great addition to my Ascent. But just as I said at the start of the video, I do think there's a place for both of these VTXs, and I'm sure we'll see even more coming out, maybe from different companies. I think it'd be pretty cool if we just saw a complete all-in-one camera from RunCam, and then I guess that would stop people, you know, being able to take advantage of the fact that you can add stuff to it. I think if RunCam came out with a all-in-one that you didn't have to mess around with and gave you options to sort of bypass the video if you want to use it on screen display. If you're listening, RunCam, because RunCam actually did send this direct to me, but I think everyone would appreciate that, because yeah, I like the fact that we can do all-in-one cameras, but is it an all-in-one camera if you have to do soldering and things like that? Oh, of course you don't need to do soldering if you're just plugging the cam straight in with the connectors, but if you want to get an on-screen display in the mix like I've got here, then you're gonna have to do some cutting and soldering, desoldering, etc. And I think an all-in-one camera solution with the VTX and just some pads for plugging in your on-screen display, I think that'd be quite nice. But for now, we have these sort of DIY VTXs. They're very cheap as well, both the TX200 from RunCam and Full Speed. I think they sit at around about £11. I think the TX200 is just like £1 more, but I've had good results out of both of them. So like I say, it all depends what is suitable for your build, I think. I don't know, what do you think? Let me know in the comments. I will link to the review I did of the TX200, which came out really well. You can check out both of them and decide for yourself which one you want to go for. Anyways, I will come in for a landing, and as always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.